and let us all do we can to build a better future.
The Washington Post is reporting that about 12 million Americans could lose unemployment benefits after Christmas.
Merry
so
Christmas.
What's happening is that unless there is an extension of benefits, about 12 million people are going to lose their benefits. According to this article, 4.4 million people have already exhausted their benefits this year. We also have to consider that there's about 7.3 million workers on pandemic and unemployment assistance, which is a supplemental insurance for people who are gig and self-employed workers like Uber drivers, delivery drivers, freelancers, that sort of thing. So this is going to be a massive problem, particularly when you also consider at the end of the year is when a lot of these eviction moratoriums are going to be ending.
Okay.
Yep. That's I mean, whenever that hammer falls down with evictions, everything changes.
30 to 40 million Americans are at risk of being homeless right now in the streets. As we drive to the studio, because I don't know how what you guys see along your way come to the studio, but my pathway with are taking a Dan Ryan, going on Lakeshore Drive, or even going to side streets. I'm seeing more and more homeless tents. I'm seeing more and more people on the streets. I'm seeing businesses being shut down. 30 to 40 million Americans are at risk of being evicted from their homes and apartments. I don't know what's going to happen to a lot of these small businesses. I don't know where everyone's going to make their ends meet, because you know what? Once it's 30 to 40 million, does it rise up to 50 million? Do we humor up to 60, 70, 80, 100 million Americans homeless on the streets? This virus is still here. Where's the compassion from Congress? Hey, yo, Biden, Harris.
Why are you not calling for this?
Where are you at? Because your silence is deafening.
We want to talk about how students dropping out of school, is a public health hazard. We know that it's bad for young people. Mm-hmm. There's research in Belgium and Argentina that has shown, particularly for young men, cutting short education is a very bad thing. We know this. We also know that homelessness is a massive public health problem. So you want to add another public health crisis on top of multiple public health crises at this point? And never mind, and I keep on pointing this out, and I hate to do it. I hate to do this. But when you've got desperate people in the dead of winter who are terrified of a virus, who are in their homes, they feel they have nothing left to lose, and they have firearms, which many people stocked up on this year for a range of reasons, and the sheriff comes knocking on the door for an eviction? Mm-hmm. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. When people have nothing left to lose, they will do very desperate and wrong things.
Thank you.
And it's
Thank
so
you very
crazy
much for saying that, Lenny.
We live in a quote-unquote first world nation, but who said it? We're a third world nation really doing a good job of masquerading not as one. How crazy is it? Like in Europe, for the most part, they have stuff in place so that this doesn't happen.
This doesn't happen. They have housing first policies.
Yeah, and here we have America. We're like, yeah, I know I can't fill this place back up, but like, and you've talked about this to a great extent. I've learned a huge amount of just this dynamic that you can't, in a sense, the government has made it a no-win situation. If you're a landlord, you can't keep people in because you have costs associated. It's like, in a sense, every tenant's like another college loan that you have to maintain. Because then you have to pay the gas, you got to pay the water, you got to do all this, you have to pay the property taxes. And especially if you're a small tenant that maybe has split a first and second floor, or maybe you only have a few units, or even if you're larger, you have to, the government has set up a way that this entire process works, and that requires getting paid by tenants. So if you do nothing, you destroy basically this entire process and allow many people that have money to just buy through the system. And then we have maybe a dozen people owning all the homes in America, which is a horrible, horrible situation. Or on the other hand, you say, okay, well, you guys have, you can't pay rent, you got to go out. And then you have the whole scenario that Lainey just pointed out. This is a situation where the only answer was, hey, the government needs to intervene in this. But sadly, we are doing an amazing job of reliving the 1920s and 1930s where very similar situations happened, to the point that we had terms for things like Hooverville, which was just a tent town, maybe newspaper, and then Hoover blankets, which were literally just newspapers because no one had any money and no ability to spend it. So what they're really doing by not investing in the schools, what the schools could have done is they could have made a deal with Google and said every kid gets a Chromebook and we make sure that everyone has an access point for those Chromebooks. And we could have done that. That would have been a private-public partnership that we would have been like, oh, maybe there's a better way to do it. But it would have been something. It would have been the difference of many thousands of people's lives coming or going one way or the other by doing that. But no, all we've done all across the country, and especially in blue states, which is really weird that it worked out this way, although it's not, is that we have said we're going to shut everything down and we're not going to help the people that are affected, but we're still going to have the same expectations of payment towards the government from taxation that we still expect, even though we're absolutely grinding them into dirt.
Well, I'm going to put one more thing that occurred to me this week, all right? Restaurants have been shut back down for indoor dining, and it's just not practical to have outdoor dining in this weather. Restaurants and bars are closed down entirely if they don't serve food. Okay, let's think about this. There is, in addition to the people who own these establishments, in addition to the commercial landlords who aren't getting their rents, in addition to the people who are not getting paid, they have no money, the workers, the chefs, the busboys, all that. Think about this. Many of those restaurants and bars rely on the labor of undocumented immigrants. Now, I would like to see undocumented immigrants become documented because I think that, I don't think it's good for people to be exploited that way, but that's reality. We know that if you're undocumented, you can get a job as a dishwasher or as a night porter or doing that kind of work in many restaurants and many bars. The hospitality industry is oftentimes a safe haven. That industry no longer exists. What happens to undocumented workers in this country?
Okay, so
we're looking at potential of an increased potential for human trafficking, because you have a bunch of desperate people who are terrified of being turned over to ICE, and I can't say that I blame them, and who are now even more vulnerable to the human traffickers who will say, well, we'll give you a place to sleep, but you're basically looking at modern-day slavery. We need to get beyond the idea of human trafficking being about sex trafficking. Yes, it's a problem. It's a very bad thing. I'm not saying it isn't. A lot of human trafficking does not involve sexual exploitation. It's people being they're slaves. They are actually working for no money. These cases are uncovered fairly routinely. And you have cases where people, they bring in groups of people who are undocumented. They're shipped out every day to do jobs. They come back with their pay. The pay is confiscated. They're locked up in a basement somewhere. The next day, it happens again and again. And I think that we are probably going to see. This is my prediction, because I've been making predictions and I've generally been correct. I think we are going to see an increase in human trafficking as a result, and that is one of the most insidious things that any nation ever has to deal with. And you want to talk about public health problems? Well, there you go.
We are doing a really good job of designing really terrible systems to try and just do everything we can to keep the explanation of the system is running fine going. We're going to have increases of crime everywhere, where people are just breaking into places just to get something to eat, a warm place to stay. America is coming apart at the seams, and it's not out of any inevitability. This is a series of choices that have been put in place, and we have continued to watch these things get worse and worse and worse. And you've seen us do this show for a long time, even before all this, the pandemic. These are the same issues that we talked about because we saw the house of cards that are these systems. We saw what the lack of these systems that need to be in place are, and there's going to be a lot of people that, here's another one that just popped in my mind. Right now, we're making cannabis legal everywhere, which means a lot of jails that especially use slave labor to keep their profit centers running as they are for profit are going to be emptying out. And so what better thing to fill them back up with than the homeless? Because a lot of people that will have homes, all we're going to be hearing is calls and calls and calls and calls. Hey, there's a person here, they're trespassing, X, Y, and Z. So they're going to be, this would be my prediction on this, they're going to be rotating out all the people that went in or are leaving on nonviolent drug offenses and putting them in there for trespassing. It's the new labor force.